What's good, everybody? Welcome to a brand new Daily Betslip. Tuesday, July 12th, loaded slate. We're talking bad beat in NBA Summer League, game of the night, Chris Sale's debut. I'm going to fill you in on the AAC this year in college football. And of course, we got best bets. I'm off a 3-0 night myself. It's me, Reed Wallach, joined by the great Ben Heisler. Day 2 of a 3-day extravaganza for me and Ben this week. Ben, what's going on, man?
What's happening, Reed? The fact that you're already leading in with great only puts an enormous amount of pressure for us to deliver on some of our bets today. But you're right, 3-0 yesterday. Very, very good start to the week. Been a little slow from some of our daily dingers. So I think that's if I'm looking for one area where I want to see us try to get a little bit of luck, put the ball over the fence. 15 game slate tonight, especially with the first game of the doubleheader between the White Sox and Guardians already underway. Like Tuesdays are some of my favorite days to bet on baseball, just because you know that there's so much action at night. Some people prefer it spread out over the Wednesday and the Thursday slate, same with the weekends, but I like having it all jam-packed into one night. That makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about Tuesday, before we get to Tuesday, let's go back to last night where we always start our bad beat of the night. I was actually on this game in particular, and one of those chaotic summer league finishes. So let me set the stage here. Jazz are laying anywhere between 1.5 and 2 points against the Mavericks. Mavs cut the lead to 1 with about 30 seconds left or so. Johnny Juzang of the Jazz, he hits a 3 to go ahead by 4. Jaden Hardy of the Mavs comes back, cuts it to 1. 28 seconds left, so a 2 for 1 there. Jazz come back down, miss the 3. Taco Fall, of course, gets the rebound, fouled, inbound. So there's about a second and a half left here for the Jazz. They're going to inbound it, probably get fouled, go to the line for a push or cover. You're sitting there feeling pretty good if you have the Jazz. Little whistle malfunction inbounding. So instead of the Jazz inbounding it again, it becomes a jump ball. By the time it's tipped up and someone gets it, the game is over. If you had the Jazz, that hurts because they end up winning by 1. You're thinking it's good with all the fouls and everything that's happening at the end of the game. But yeah, for me, as someone who had the Mavs, I was feeling pretty good. But if you had the Jazz, that sucks because you had to sit through this pitiful 83-82 summer league game, and you end up losing in that heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah, not a lot of scoring from the Jazz, especially to try and close things off in the fourth quarter. They just had 17 points the rest of the way. You're right. They end up winning by 1. And for the Jazz, they remain undefeated in the Las Vegas Summer League after having some issues of their own right in their home building in Salt Lake City. But yeah, being on the Mavs side, I'm glad it was able to at least cover for you. But for anybody on the Jazz side, especially in that type of fashion, in Summer League, mind you, like I get sitting through it over the course of a regular season game. But if you put in the time and effort to sit through that Summer League game, 82-83, like you said, not a lot of points being scored. And for that to be the final result, oof, that's got to be absolutely brutal.
Yeah, because you could justify it for yourself if you get the win. You're like, yeah, Summer League, having some fun passing the time. And then if you lose in that fashion, you're saying, wait, I bet on that? Why did I do that? That was miserable. But yeah, so brutal beat, good for me. Brutal if you had the Jazz, but I guess that's what you get for betting Summer League. We're going to move on now to best bets for Tuesday. Of course, we close the book on Monday. We have one Twitter response that we don't have a graphic because we got it in late, but the great Cody Wells checked in with his best bet. Travis d'Arnaud, under half a hit, plus 170 in the Braves and Mets game tonight. He's 0 for 8 with 5 strikeouts and a walk in 9 plate appearances against David Peterson. He's the Mets starter for tonight. Hasn't recorded a hit in 3 of his last 4. And one of those games was a pinch hit appearance, only 0 for 1, a little bit different. But still, d'Arnaud in a bit of a slump, going against a guy in Peterson who he doesn't seem to have a read on anyway. A lefty, his former team. No revenge angle for Travis d'Arnaud, according to our friend Cody Wells. He likes d'Arnaud to go under half a hit. Ben, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, it makes plenty of sense. Cody has always been a guy that, rather than necessarily going for projections, likes to go with the actual tangible results, right? Well, in the case of d'Arnaud, you have exactly that. You have numbers that indicate that he's probably going to have an issue with Peterson. And by the way, I know that our guy Joe Summers is already buying himself a Spencer Strider jersey, and he's a really good pitcher. But Peterson's had a decent year as well. It's another night in a row where your New York Mets are being slept on. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm ready to go ahead and jump on board with the Mets today. I probably need to dive into it a little bit further. I got some other games that I have circled for today, but kind of just feels like the Mets are just being blatantly dismissed early on in the series. Scherzer went out and dealt, covered for me yesterday in the first 5. I can't help but wonder if some folks might be sleeping a little bit on Peterson tonight.
This is what I was saying. Scherzer being a little undervalued. I said I didn't have much interest in betting it, but that felt like a playoff game last night. Scherzer showed up. He did what he had to do, and that's why he's here. He's here to be a veteran presence, not necessarily be the ace. Hopefully DeGrom comes back, but that was a statement win for the Mets, in my opinion, winning 4-1. We'll see how tonight goes. Just in my base level analysis, I'm not betting this, but I do kind of lean towards the over. I think you're going to see the Mets get to Strider a little bit. Strider's kind of feasted on his strikeout capability, but the Mets, one of the lowest strikeout rates in baseball in the past several weeks. So I actually see a little bit of value in the over because the Braves do hit lefties well. I'm a little nervous about Peterson out there, but listen, Peterson has been a crucial piece to a banged up Mets rotation this entire season. So he does get the benefit of the doubt for me. We'll see how he does, but big shout out to Cody for checking in with his best bet, and apologies on not getting that graphic in there, but thanks as always. So let's get ready for now our best bets. We each have a pair Major League Baseball play. You have a WNBA play. So Ben, why don't you start with your best MLB prop bet, and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, I wrote about this over at BetSided earlier today. You and I provided our 2 favorite props of the night. Doesn't look good for the White Sox currently as things stand over in Game 1, but in Game 2, Dylan Cease is on the mound. And I'm going to say something that, Reed, you might want to do a little earmuffs for it. 3 words that I know you really don't like. You ready? All-star snub. All-star snub. I mentioned that earlier to Reed in talking about some of our plays for tonight. He just went, ugh, really? I hate talking about all-star snubs. I'm going to talk about one in the case of Dylan Cease because I do think it's actually going to be somewhat impactful for their game in Game 2 against Cleveland on the road. Cease has just been awesome. And kind of similar to what I had talked about with Max Scherzer on Monday, I expect him to come out and be a little bit pissed off that he did not make the All-Star team. He's been sensational all year, has a strikeout per 9 innings, over 13 per game, has an ERA of 2.45, and crazy numbers here to consider that he's only allowed 3 earned runs all the way back since May 24th. Now, you might say, well, yeah, I've seen him takes a couple losses in some of those games. And you would be right. He's given up 12 runs, still a very good number since May 24th. It's July 12th as we speak, but his defense has really let him down. So in Game 2, knowing that they're going to need Dylan Cease to try and right the ship, get some wins against an AL Central opponent where Chicago continues to find themselves falling further and further behind. They need Dylan Cease. They need him to act like the ace that he's been over the course of this year. I think he goes out and delivers. Again, it's Game 2. Usually these doubleheaders tend to split themselves a little bit, and he's been very good and very consistent all year. So the fact that he hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs, Reed, in the last month and a half gives me a good indication that he can hold them to under 1.5 runs in the first 5 innings for today's game. So that's my prop for today. A little bit different, not necessarily player-centric. The pick is Guardians under 1.5 through the first 5 innings of today's game.
Yeah, I like that you're going first 5 in this one because I mentioned this in my best bet yesterday, taking the Guardians. They cashed for me. This White Sox team just can't stay out of its own way. So it makes me a little nervous. They also just lost their first half of the doubleheader. Let Shane Bieber go for a complete game. Makes me a little nervous, like backing the White Sox in any sort of full game fashion, even though you're right. Cease has been amazing. And I hate talking about all-star snubs because I think that there's just the conversation goes whatever. I won't get into it, but I do like going
in this context. I think
yes, he is a deserving all-star. I wouldn't say he's a snub, but he's a deserving all-star. Fortunately, roster constraints don't let everyone get voted. But I do like this though, focusing on that first 5 angle, just avoiding any sort of White Sox issues late in games, meltdown, something like that. Going first 5, trusting Cease to get the job done, avoid late game drama. But for me, so went 3-0 yesterday. And unfortunately, the only two sides I like outside the game of the night is on, two, I wouldn't say big favorites, but two overpriced, not like a pick 'em favorite or anything like that. Two north of -140. My first one is going to be the Dodgers, -154 against the Cardinals. Pretty rare to get the Dodgers at this price. Best record in the NL. And I know the Cardinals are getting a lot of respect, but I'm not really sure why. Under 500 in their last 10 games. The Dodgers have the better pitcher on the mat. I know they're on the road, but Mitch White only allowed 2 earned runs in 10 in the last third, 10 and 1/3 last 2 starts. Dodgers offense starting to round into form, top 5 in weighted runs created plus over the last month. Cardinals bottom half in that metric. I think the Dodgers are a better team. Usually you're getting them at -200, -225. You have to take the run line or something. Yeah, I'm at -154. I think this is a bargain, especially going up against Matt Liberatore, lefty pitcher. Dodgers hit lefties well. And Liberatore, ERA 4.74, FIP north of 5. I just think this is a mismatch here. I'm going to take the Dodgers to win the series opener against the Cards.
Yeah, read your article over on BetSided covering this game. Also know that it's part of Joe Summers' MLB parlay picks tonight. You're right. Anytime you can get the Dodgers, remember they've been baseball's best run line team for probably about the first couple months. Liberatore is a guy that they believe in. I mean, he's 22 years old, and they're hoping, considering that where he ranked in a lot of their prospect rankings, that he's going to start to turn it around eventually. But I mean, if you look at his MLB Statcast page, you usually want to target guys that have a lot of red when it comes to their percentile rankings. I mean, Liberatore is just living in the blue all day, like top 10 or bottom 10 percentile in whiff rate. Just not missing a lot of bats right now. The strikeout per 9 is not particularly good at all. And the Dodgers have been great. They've been one of the hotter teams in baseball. In St. Louis for a while too, they were playing like one of those teams. Remember that stretch that Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado were on? I mean, right now everybody is struggling to find any sort of consistency. I think they brought what's it called? It's like a candle type thing. Sage. They're like burning sage around.
Sage. I'm familiar. My Kyrie Irving once played for my basketball team.
He's still on the roster.
He's on the roster, but
on the roster. He may not be on the roster for much longer, but yes. All right, so great. So now the Cardinals are following the Kyrie Irving school of trying to set good juju in their home ballpark. Things are a mess right now for St. Louis, and I'm with you there. I like the fact that you can get the Dodgers at a really good price. Mitch White's been very good. Matthew Liberatore, not so good.
Yeah, I'm not going to overthink this one. I know it's a little, you got to pay a little bit for it. I hope it doesn't come back to bite me, but I like this one. You just don't get the Dodgers at this price typically. But Ben, I know you're also looking at two favorites where you're putting them together. So let me hear it.
Yeah, I feel like both of these games are really set up nicely. And I kind of felt like, why just choose one when you can choose both of them? So let's start with the Minnesota Twins. They are at home against the Milwaukee Brewers. I think this is a really good spot for them against Jason Alexander of the Brewers. He's 2-1, 4.75 ERA, going up against Josh Winder, who's been fairly decent, 4-2 with a 3.12 ERA. But Jason Alexander, again, I talked about Statcast profiles. Matthew Liberatore's is bad. Jason Alexander's might be one of the worst in baseball. He is the first percentile. That's all the way on the wrong side when it comes to strikeout percentage. He's in the first percentile in whiff percentage. He's averaging like 4.5 strikeouts per 9 innings and has gotten just demolished as of late. And the Twins come into this game looking really, really sharp at the plate. They're 4th right now in the American League in OPS and in slugging. They're set up very nicely, and I think the fact that you can only get them right now at -135 feels like a very reasonable number. And I'm going to pair them up with the Chicago Cubs. Yes, I am taking the hot pitching of the Chicago Cubs and Adrian Sampson. I don't know if you're familiar, Reed, with Adrian Sampson, but he was a guy that those in the fantasy community, you would stack a lineup against Adrian Sampson whenever he was on the mound. So I think he was pitching for Texas at one point. Even if the Mariners were terrible in that matchup, you would just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plug them all into your daily fantasy lineup because he was atrocious. Just absolutely terrible. I saw this number since he came over to Chicago middle of last year from Gordon Whitmire, formerly of the Chicago Times, now with NBC Sports Chicago. So Adrian Sampson, since arriving in Chicago in 57 innings, has a 2.81 ERA. It's really solid. His ERA with every other team that he's ever played for, 5.71. For whatever reason, Chicago just got him into the pitch lab, started to figure things out, and he's pitching with a ton of confidence right now. And right now, one of the more consistent starters in Chicago's lineup or Chicago's rotation. Jordan Lyles has been kind of very mediocre. He has an expected ERA a full run higher than his 4.5 ERA tonight. I think this is one of those traditional Vegas traps where you see the Orioles as one of the hottest teams in baseball. They've won 8 straight games, had that break in between, now travel to Chicago. They're 9 games under on the road. I just think this sets up well for Chicago when everyone's going to want to bet on the Orioles, just 1 game away from that elusive 500 mark, Reed, that they haven't been at in several years. I like the Cubs and I like the Twins. Let's put them together for a nice little parlay of plus 225 on the board tonight.
Yeah, Chicago nightlife is going to ruin the Orioles bid for 500. Yeah, plus 225, big payout. But I'm going to stick with you, though, because we got a comment from James Lill. He's looking for a WNBA pick. So I know we were going to go back and forth, but I'm going to pivot here to give the people what they want. And, of course, we are talking about an Aces game. So, Ben, what are you eyeing in the Aces game tonight?
Yeah, the Aces have broken my heart over the last couple games and really just have been a disaster in the final stretch of the season. 5-5, you would think for most teams that's fairly reasonable, but not for a team that got off to the start that they did, especially letting the New York Liberty, who's one of the slowest paced teams in the NBA, and they scored 116 against them back on the 6th. That was also a game, Reed, that if the Aces would have won, they would have been able to host the Commissioner's Cup against the Sky coming up at the end of July. And for anyone unfamiliar with the Commissioner's Cup, it's basically a first half in-season tournament for $500,000. The winning team, every player gets $30,000. So that's a sizable amount in the WNBA. And the Aces just completely let that one get away. Terrible defense the last few games. They got blown out by Minnesota. But I think this was a team that just needed some rest. I wrote about it in my power rankings today that the Aces really, after their starting 5, are not getting enough consistent minutes from their bench. The sort of the outstanding trio that they have, especially led by Asia Wilson, has just not been getting it done. But the pick I like tonight is the Aces first half, -3.5 against the Liberty. Liberty's still a little bit banged up. You're now going with Sabrina Ionescu coming from Chicago, going back to New York. Vegas didn't have to take the full West Coast travel with a lot of them already in New York after Chicago from some of their All-Star games. But it's really about the Aces' ability in the first half. They've been so good and so consistent all season long, Reed. Like, we're talking about a team in the first half for Las Vegas that is top of the line when it comes to net rating this year, best offensive rated team in the WNBA in the first half. Conversely, you have a Liberty team that's really struggled in the first half. Normally a very good defensive team. They rank 10th in defensive rating. They've been better on offense, but they're 11th when it comes to offensive rating. Everything for the Aces just sets up to be much better in the first half. And I think having the All-Star break to kind of collectively realize some of the mistakes that they were making down the stretch of the season, I like them, especially in the first half. Second half, they kind of let some games away, but they've been a good first half team. The Liberty has not been, and especially knowing what just happened in the game that they let get away in Las Vegas, I like them to go to New York tonight in Brooklyn and go ahead and cover in the first half.
Yeah, such is the tradition of me. The last time I did with Donovan, he didn't bet on an Aces game, but pretty much every other time with the Aces. So Ben's got Aces first half -3.5 for you, James Lowell. Back to me, though. I'm doing something I bet last night, worked pretty well. Going with the Padres again, -146 against the Colorado Rockies. Austin Gomber is one of the worst pitchers in baseball. I'm not speaking hyperbole. Lefty pitcher. The Padres do well against lefties. They do better away from home. It's a perfect storm for the Padres. I said last night that I was like, this is kind of a interesting price. And I thought that the Rockies actually had a better matchup last night against a lefty and Sean Manaea. Now they're going against a righty and Mike Clevenger, who the Rockies don't do as well against righties. I think that this is a good, again, it's similar to the Dodgers, but even more, even more of a gap where it's a good team against a bad team. We're getting a good price, and we're going to fade Austin Gomber. So the Padres, who are top 10 in OPS away from home, they plated 6 runs last night. I think they could do that again tonight. So I'm going to take the Padres again. It's 2 favorites, which makes me a little concerned, but it's what this is, you got to deal with what the, where the cards went. So I'm going Padres money line -142 as my second best bet. And then my third best bet's going to come later on from game of the night. But let's pull up that recap graphic, though, so we could get everything up for you. So Ben is on the Guardians team total under 1.5 in the first 5. He's on the Twins Cubs moneyline parlay that pays out plus 225. He's also on Aces first half minus 3.5 against the Liberty. And then I am on a pair of favorites, Dodgers minus 154 against the Cardinals and Padres minus 142 against the Rockies.
Really quickly, I was just going to say really quickly, too, before we dive into a little bit more college football action, as we start to get everybody's futures bets ready to go here on Daily Betslip. I'm glad you're on the Padres as well. I was on that game for Daily Dinger last night, but the guy that I chose, Chris Bryant, ended up having to leave a little bit early for paternity leave. So I did not get an opportunity to bat in that game, but I am staying with it. Really like my play. I'm going back on the San Diego Padres side. Ha-Sung Kim is my pick. Okay. He's likely going to lead off. He's been incredible as a power hitter against left-handed pitching on the road with an ISO up near the 300s compared to right-handers anywhere else. This is sort of his sweet spot. He's going to have multiple opportunities against Gomber at the top of the lineup. So you and I are both thinking a lot of the same things as far as the Padres go. Hopefully Kim can get things going right off the top.
Yeah, listen, I hope he hits 2 grand slams and the Padres win by 12. So
there you go.
I'm totally with you.
They hit the over by themselves.
So let's talk some football. We did yesterday a little ACC preview. Got everything ready to go. I see James Lill in the comments. I don't have anything on Summer League. Ben, do you have anything on Summer League tonight? I'm going to take my Mavs win as like it's time for me to stay away. I'm good.
I don't have anything for Summer League. However, if you go and check out Josh Yorch's plays over at BetSided, you can find 3 different write-ups for Summer League games between the Grizzlies and the Nets. I believe that's one of the earlier games of the day. You have Celtics and the Warriors. That's a primetime game on ESPN tonight, as well as Lakers and Clippers. So I would say go ahead and take a look at some of those articles from Josh. Really, really outstanding coverage. 3 different games that you can bet on today over an NBA Summer League. So I have not placed a bet on them, but to you, Mr. Lill, I would say head on over to BetSided. It's right at the NBA page. You can't miss it. 3 different plays that you can consider for tonight.
And if you want to hang around for some futures plays on the AAC, this is the spot.
There you go. Yeah, stick around, come back later, whatever you want to do.
So we spoke yesterday at the ACC, obviously a Power 5 conference. We're going a little bit in alphabetical order here. We're looking at the AAC, the last year as we know it, with teams like UCF moving to the Big 12 starting next football season. But it's actually, this conference has been ran by Cincinnati the past several years. Of course, they broke through, made the college football playoff last year. But this is a team that's having a little bit of an overhaul here. Out is Desmond Ridder. Out is Sauce Gardner, both now playing in the NFL, among others as well. I actually don't think Cincinnati is set up for success this season. Again, they're still going to be in the mix. They're still one of the best teams. They are currently the favorite at plus 180. But I'm actually looking at second and third on the odds board for where I'm looking in the futures market. So I have 2 different bets here. We'll start with the second choice, Houston. Plus 240 right now over at WynnBET Sportsbook. I'm not betting them to win the AAC, but I'm actually betting them to win over 9 games. Their schedule plays out perfectly for them. They have 2 challenging non-conference games, but I actually think that they're set up to win both of them. They're favored at UTSA in the first game in week 1, and then they're at Texas Tech in week 2, a revenge game from last year, a game in which they were leading in the first half. They lost that in week 1. They proceed to rip off 10 straight to finish the regular season before they lost to Cincinnati in the AAC championship game. They bring back Clayton Tune. They bring back Tank Dells. I like Houston a lot this year. At over 9 wins, I think that the schedule really breaks their way. They avoid both Cincinnati and UCF in the conference schedule. So I think regular season wise, they're going to dominate. Meanwhile, UCF, though, I think is going to be the best team in this conference. More challenging schedule, but they bring back 9 of their top 12 tacklers. They have a bit of a quarterback competition going with Ole Miss transfer John Reese Plumlee and Mike coming in, and Mikey Keene sticking over. He kind of found his footing towards the end of the year. But UCF's defense, I think, is the best unit in this conference. At plus 360, they host Cincinnati. They have a favorable schedule. I think they're going to be in that conference championship game, and you're getting kind of a bargain here with plus 360. I think by the time that Cincinnati game comes around, the difference between these teams are going to change. So futures-wise, I'm going UCF plus 360. And to answer James' little question, thanks for sticking around, by the way. All those teams are leaving because of conference realignment. A lot of teams joined the Big 12. Not going to say this conference is over as we know it, but, definitely some shifting going around the conference. So last year of this iteration of the American Athletic Conference. So just to summarize, I like Houston to win a bunch of games in the regular season, and I like UCF to ultimately lift the conference championship trophy and get back to a New Year's Six Bowl. Ben, I know I threw a lot at you there.
Yeah, so let's start with Houston for a second. It actually would seem at first glance that the start of their schedule might actually be a little bit more challenging than people would expect. Like UTSA on the road, is there any possibility that could be a potential trap? They're on the road again at Texas Tech. First 2 games for them on the road. And then, the dangerous Kansas Jayhawks come into their building in week 3. That's a formidable Big 12 opponent that they're going to have to worry about for years to come.
Yeah, so Houston is going to be favored at UTSA in week 1. And then Texas Tech, they'll probably be dogs, but Texas Tech, new head coach, kind of trying to go through a bit of a facelift. So I actually think Houston is live to win both of those games. But with a win total of 9, the backstop, you could handle 3 losses in the regular season and still push this total. I think at worst, they're getting a split there. I don't see an 0-2 start with that much returning production. This is a big year for Houston. I don't know if they're going to win the conference, but the schedule breaks their way. Toughest conference game at SMU, also going through a bit of changes, losing Sonny Dykes. I just think that this Houston team is set up for a ton of success. They finished the year winning 11 of the last 12. I think that they're going to ride that momentum into this year. And I think hang like a big number, like an 11-1 regular season, I really don't think is that out of the question.
All right, so you have Houston going over 9, likely winning the ACC regular season. Is there a surprise team, whether it be Memphis, who comes in at 7.5 for their win total? I suppose UCF probably doesn't. They're not in that ranking, even though
they're not a surprise team.
Not a surprise team. I would say it's Houston and then Cincinnati, then probably UCF. So does a team like Memphis probably get consideration? SMU has a projected win total of 7. Tulane. I know you're not particularly high on Tulsa, but is there a team that might come into the AAC this year and perhaps surprise some people and maybe get some value on their over?
If we're talking over further down the board, Tulane is a bit interesting because their win total is just 6. So it's basically, is this team going to be bowl eligible or not? And the last year kind of just went like completely off the rails. They went 0-5 in 1-score games last year. They have 3 like layup games that they're probably going to win. Like they're going to be big favorites in. And then a bunch of coin flips where they're playing the likes of like ECU, SMU, Memphis at home. Can they maybe get some like variance their way, get back to bowl eligibility? I don't think it'd be that crazy. They do have some returning talent and stuff. But again, it's 6 plus 110 to the over. So you could get some, all you have to get is bowl eligibility. So, can they overachieve? Maybe. They went 0-5 in 1-score games last year. Like those usually kind of work themselves out over time. So if we're looking for like further away from the top, Tulane is kind of an interesting, get back to a bowl, maybe overachieve and get to 7. Whereas East Carolina, like last year was kind of their big year. I'm a little nervous to get back involved with them because now their win total has been juiced up because of that.
No doubt. And then James is also continuing to check in, saying that he lives in New Orleans. If Tulane doesn't have that quarterback, they're not going to be good. And he hopes that he makes a bowl game. I have my brother-in-law went to Tulane and said it's actually a really fun environment for a college football game. Not necessarily anything crazy like an SEC school, but it's still New Orleans, and it's still going to be a good time, especially before in the early portion of the season where it's still a little bit hot. Even when it gets a little bit later on, the weather is still fairly decent. But Tulane could be one of those teams I like that could be hanging around for a little bit. Matt Forte, notable alum from Tulane.
Yeah. I mean, they have their quarterback back in Pratt. They bring over a new offensive coordinator from Central Missouri, as well as the leading receiver. So a little continuity there. Overall, 89% returning production, according to ESPN. So the pieces are there. I mean, they lost 8 straight last year, but again, it felt like one of those like Murphy's Law type things where anything that could go wrong did go wrong. That's why like if it was 5, if I could find like a juiced 5.5 minus 140, definitely on Tulane. Cause like, then it's like, I think that this team can go bowling where again, just like rule of thumb in general, like if 6 is the magic number in college football, especially when you're looking at these middling teams, like 6.5, a team might get to a bowl game and kind of like take their foot off the gas. So 6 wins, that's kind of like the threshold. Whereas 5.5, maybe that last week they say, hey, we really want this. Let's go get a bowl game right now and win this last game. So there's motivation there. So that's kind of a way to look at these bowls or teams near bowl eligibility in the win total. So Tulane, juice 5.5. Plus money 6, flat 6 for sure. Definitely interested. But yeah, there's like some AAC overview on July 12th because that's what I'm into.
I gotta tell you too, what's fun about the AAC, and again, like your knowledge of this conference is far superior to that of mine. But just even looking at the win totals for all these teams, there's really only one bad team in the AAC this year, and that's Temple. Like I know that Navy comes in at 4.5, but Navy's also one of those teams with the way that they constantly run the ball that they're going to be a pain in the ass for a lot of teams to deal with. And they always seem to have a couple surprise wins along the way as well. So if that's your second worst team in the conference, then that's a fun conference to be a part of.
Yeah, the AAC is definitely, I mean, it's definitely a higher level conference than some other ones. They're kind of in like that tier B, of course, is the last year. But I completely agree with you that it's a fun conference and a lot of those teams in the middle can knock off, especially with Cincinnati falling off. And by the way, Cincinnati had some close calls last year, nearly got knocked off that top spot where they made the college football playoffs. So this is a very competitive conference. It's a very fun conference. They also play a lot on like Thursdays and Fridays where they get that like ESPN notoriety. So very fun conference. I'd break it down as Cincy, Houston, UCF. That's the top 3. Crowded middle, a pile of poop, Temple. But so I like, but if we're talking futures, just really quick to summarize before we move to game of the night, I like Houston over 9 wins, 9 flat. Anything up to minus 130 is good. I like UCF to win the conference at anything plus 350 or better. And I like Tulsa under 6 wins. This is a team kind of the opposite of Tulane. They've gotten by on a lot. They lost their defensive coordinator, TCU, lose a ton, almost the entire offensive line. Starting running back on. I mean, everything is gone here. So I think Tulsa, they've kind of skidded by for the past few years. They got hot at the end of last year to make a bowl game. I think that they are not going bowling this year. So I'll go under on Tulsa's win total. Anything better than minus 135 should be good there as well.
All right. There you have it.
And if you want more of that, go to BetSided.com, college football tab. All my previews are right there. They're coming up almost daily now. So pretty pumped about all that stuff. And yeah, let's have a big year there. But let's get back to today because we got a game of the night. Stud Chris Sale returns to the mound for the Boston Red Sox, making a season debut. Game of the night is Red Sox Rays. The Red Sox are a slight road favorite, total of 7. Ben, I'll start with you. What is your thoughts on, before we do like our best bet, what are your thoughts on Sale coming back and where the Red Sox stand in a crowded AL, just competitive AL? I know that there are still double-digit games behind the Yankees.
Yeah, I get the feeling with Sale that he's either going to come out and shove or just get rocked. I don't think there's sort of anything in between. I got to tell you, I actually heard a story about Chris Sale about a week or so ago on my buddy Danny Parkin's show at 670 The Score, and it was an interview that Rick Hahn, the general manager of the White Sox, had talked about. Do you remember when Chris Sale got mad that he didn't want to wear a particular type of jersey? So we cut up all the different jerseys. Do you remember hearing this story?
Yes, I do.
So they were talking about how like what he did was like blatantly unacceptable, but also was part of what made him great. And then literally like a couple days later, there was a clip that surfaced online of him throwing another hissy fit while starting for like AAA Pawtucket, like throwing stuff around, like just I get that he's a dominant pitcher, but there's something right now that if you're going to have that type of reaction in a rehab start in AAA, like, are you really ready to come back and enter a playoff race? He's done it, and he's an incredible pitcher and an immense talent, but this is not somebody, at least right now, that I feel a whole heck of a lot comfortable with betting on, especially as a favorite. And granted, the Red Sox have also been one of those teams that get extremely hot, but that can also fall off a little bit, over an 8-2 stretch followed by a 3-7 stretch. Like, they're a very talented team, and especially if Devers continues on the trajectory he's on, you're talking about another dark horse MVP candidate. The Tampa has just been a little bit more consistent. I just feel like I tend to trust them throughout the course of 162 a little bit more than Boston, at least at this point.
Yeah, I think that Sale coming back is huge for the Red Sox. Second place in the AL, of course. But you're asking for a lot. He walked 5 batters in his kind of warm-up start. He didn't look good. I mean, you mentioned the hissy fit and everything. I think that this is big, though, long-term. We're talking about the Red Sox as a potential World Series contender. Nathan Eovaldi's also supposed to come back this week. I mean, good times are on the rise for the Red Sox, who got off to a terrible start, but have really found their mojo of late. They just took a series from the Yankees as well. So I do think that this is big for Sale to get back into the mix right ahead of the All-Star break, get back into the swing, get ready for this pennant push, because I do think that the Red Sox have the offense to kind of stack up against anybody, and they've proven that they can hang with the Yankees as well, a team that is maybe starting to slow down a little bit as we saw last weekend. We'll see how the Yankees pan out. But
yeah, I think a lot of it too, Reed, is purely dependent on what Chris Sale is going to show up. I mean, last year in very limited starts, he had 9 starts, but ERA was very solid, 3.16, was averaging just under 11 strikeouts per 9. The year before, he had a really high strikeout rate, but the ERA was way up at 4.40. The walk rate wasn't particularly good. In fact, it's gone up the last 5 years that he's been in the league. So if he can't control where it's going, again, having Chris Sale back is always going to be something that the Red Sox would want, but I think it might be a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily feel like that's a guy that they can rely on. I'm going to need to
he's more reliable though than Connor Seabold and Cutter Crawford. I mean, those guys are jabronis. They're a bunch of taxi drivers. So I'd rather have Chris Sale.
Yes, I'd rather have him, but I'm still saying that he's not going to come in and look like the Chris Sale from 3-4 years ago unless he is fully healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just think that the Red Sox need some semblance of a rotation. They can't keep trotting out these AAA guys. So hopefully Sale could show some health. But let's tie it home here because I know we're both on the same side. This is my third best bet. We both like the Rays as small home underdogs. I said initially the total was 7. It's 7.5. That's my bad. I misspoke. But I do like the Rays tonight as small dogs. This Tampa team's kind of getting really hot. Since the beginning of July, they are third in weighted runs created plus. The Red Sox have sneakily dropped to 15th in that metric. Again, it's somewhat of a small sample size, but it's close to half a month now that we're dealing with this. So I like the Rays at home. Corey Kluber, his last time out, shut down the Red Sox. He went only allowed 6 innings, 3-hit ball against the Red Sox last time out. So I like the Rays here as small underdogs. I think that they should be favored. We don't really know what we're getting from Chris Sale. Also, if he goes limited start, only 3 or 4 innings. Red Sox, they had a very lengthy bullpen outing this past weekend. Their bullpen isn't that good to begin with. I trust the Rays pitching staff as a whole much better. I need to see Chris Sale before I say you're a road favorite against a playoff contending team like the Rays.
Yeah, I think so too. And especially you mentioned Kluber. It hasn't been like vintage Corey Kluber, but the numbers are still pretty effective. Like, he's done a good job of keeping the ball in the ballpark. That's been an issue for him in years past. The home runs per 9 is under 1 this year. He's done a good job of not walking a lot of guys. Probably the best walk rate per 9 innings on the pitching slate tonight. 1.43 walks per 9 is sensational. And even with a solid 3.62 ERA, his fielder independent pitching is down at 3.44. So you're getting consistency. You're getting solid starts from this guy. The issue for him has kind of been run support. Just hasn't gotten a lot of them. That's why the 4-5 record is there. And also had a rough start to the year as well, but has really settled in nicely. And again, I think it might be just a little bit of name brand with Sale coming back.
I agree.
Against Kluber, who has had some inconsistencies over the last couple of years, but Tampa always seems to be that spot that can rejuvenate guys' careers. And Kluber sort of fits the bill perfectly here.
Yeah, completely agree. Well said. We're on the same side here. Great show though. Day 2 of our 3-day marathon daily bet slip from me and Ben. Before we go though, community poll. The people have spoken. I think they might be kind of on the same page as us. We'll see. But over 7.5 is the best bet from the community. So me and Ben will sprinkle a little bit, log into the sports book, go over 7.5. I would say, again, we're on the side. I do like the over, though. I think that you could see maybe, I don't want to say the Rays win big, but if Sale has a bad start, I mean, we've seen these pitchers, they need to get stretched out a little bit. The Red Sox can end up kind of punting this game if Sale gets off to a bad start with the way they're trying to. This is a big series, in the middle of the AL. So I don't hate the over 7.5. Ben, any thoughts here?
No, I think it makes sense, especially if you and I are both kind of thinking that Sale could get rocked. You can always go and take a lower number and just back the Rays on their total runs today, which I'm trying to load up here as well. I think their number is probably set at around 4 or 3.5. I'm having a hard time trying to find it. But again, that's another opportunity. If you're looking for another side and another over, you can always consider the Rays team total as well.
Yeah, but that's our show. Great show as always, Ben. I will see you same time tomorrow, Wednesday. While you're here, though, make sure you just go right below us. Make sure you click subscribe so you get notified about it. Follow us on Twitter. Check us all out at betsided.com, and we will see you tomorrow.